Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nexus, where we spotlight some of our favorite local businesses. I'm really excited to have Matt Nickell here today. Thanks for coming in, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Renee. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. I love getting to hear everybody's stories, and so we can't wait to hear yours.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you, your backstory, and how you got to be doing what you're doing today.
So for me, it's kind of interesting. I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I was little, and it was something I had a great interest in. And what started was my dad had worked for a meatpacking plant here in Lincoln, and he ended up losing his job, and they closed the whole plant down. And I'd said to my dad, I was young, and I said to my dad, hey, someday I'm going to do something that's going to help people.
Yeah.
And it's going to be able to help companies. And so I've always kept that in my mind. Of all the things you could keep in mind as a kid, that was something I always kept in mind.
That's pretty advanced.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I've kept that in the back of my mind over the years. And so that's kind of built. I didn't really know what I was going to do.
Right.
And I had a job that kind of led me down this road. I had worked for Dell here in Lincoln.
Oh, interesting.
And I had gotten an opportunity. I was actually hired to lead a team of processors, and I have a long call center background, but I never ran one. And so my senior manager at the time had said to me, hey, we would like to take and have you run the call center. I think you're the most qualified to do it.
Oh, wow.
We haven't met SLAs in 2 years, but if you...
So this is like a big problem. Do you want to take it over?
Right. Well, and then he really kind of put the icing on the cake when he says to me, if you agree to do this, you've got 90 days to completely turn this around. And I had a little boy at home, baby boy on the way.
Oh, no.
And so there's no pressure for me at all.
Yeah.
And I thought about it just for a second, and I was confident in my abilities. And I said, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. And that was the catalyst that really got me going. And I learned that I could take, and I had a good background in performance management, process improvement. I started putting that stuff together, figuring out how can we build this, how can we get this going, get this on track. And from there it just took off, and I built a process, and I used that process there. Went to work then for a couple other companies, and they both had some challenges. And in both cases, I took and used a similar process to turn them around. And they were different industries and different roles, but I could plug the same thing in.
It's interesting how, as business owners, we always think our business is so unique, but really at the end of the day, it sort of boils down to some core principles. And so being able to apply what you knew and help them out, I'm sure that was fun. I would love to do stuff like that. Yeah,
it was really rewarding. And the biggest thing I found was the buy-in, the willingness from people saying we're willing to try his wacky idea, see if this thing will work. And it turned out that it worked. So
well, sometimes it's like, what's the worst that happens? It stays the same. You know, like probably not going to get worse. So that's awesome. Well, tell us about your business today. What are your services? Who's your ideal client? Who do you love to help?
Well, I love to help small businesses and mid-sized businesses. I think the way I look at it is a lot of larger corporations have a lot of the services that I provide all in-house.
Yeah.
So we've got to
department.
Exactly. And so we have to figure out really how to take and help small businesses that don't have the capital, or even mid-sized businesses that don't have the capital. How can we get them involved and get them doing and helping with the services that I provide?
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge thing for me is what we do is process improvement, performance management, and team development. And so I call that my 3 silos of success is what I call it.
Oh, that's great. Have you tried to trademark that?
No, I haven't. I should, but I haven't.
Don't anyone out there take that. That's taken.
But it's a process that works. And
Yeah.
it's something, and if a person thinks about each one of those little 3 components, they all tie in together and they all work together, and there's a synergy between them. And if you can start to fix one, the other 2 start to come into alignment.
Right.
And so
Which one do you usually start with?
Well, it depends on the need of the client.
Okay.
And so
True.
a lot of it is, and what I like to do when I go into a setting is I like to interview everybody. Because you can learn a lot. I could, for example, let's say you need some help, and you and I could visit and talk, and you could give me some ideas, and that's one good perspective. But if I go out and if I meet with everybody else and say, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Then I can start to get more of a global perspective.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's 100% true here. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of everything, and like, what are the struggles we have with clients all the time, like they would have such a different perspective on the company. I'm always up here 30,000 feet, looking at the future, love talking about the future. And they're dealing with the here and now. So for sure, the employees would have like a really probably better perspective of what really needs fixed.
Well, and I think that as long as they feel safe, and that's the biggest thing too, you want everybody to feel safe and feel that it's okay. I know
to criticize things that need improvement.
Right, and to really if you can highlight some of those key things, then you can start to build from there. So is it a situation, as an example, in an organization, you have a situation where it seems like, we've got these training programs, this seems to be working, we think it's effective, but for some reason we've got a gap here. What's the gap? What is happening? And a lot of times you can start to look at some of the performance management, and you can look at more granular level down to the individual and start to see, okay, they're not performing as well as maybe someone else is. Okay, what's the breakdown there? And then if you start looking a little bit more into a team and you start saying, okay, this team, there's 8 people. 5 of the 8 seem to be doing okay, but these 3 are struggling. How do we get them up to speed? And then by talking to everybody, you can start to identify and pinpoint some of those things, and you can start to see maybe there's a training gap. Maybe there's a certain style of training that they need and that they're not getting.
Right.
And so that's something that I really enjoy digging into.
It made me think like you'd want to set up like a mentorship for the ones that are doing well, with pairing them up with someone that needs a little bit of help. But we don't really have that luxury. We only have one person in every role. So
there you go.
I guess the goal would be to get to a point where there's more than one person doing the same thing. So can you give us like an example of a company that you've helped, kind of like a specific problem they were going through, and what solution you provided?
The biggest, I would say probably the best one that I can think of was an organization that I worked with, and what they had was they had a quality assurance program that they had going, and they would process or do QA, but it would take them months to get that implemented or to get the QA done. Well, if you think about it for a person, how many times, if you do an action today and you do that same action tomorrow, and you do the same action a week later and a month later, you're now building a routine. And if there's something that you're doing that's maybe having an adverse impact on the profitability of the company, or maybe there's some other aspect in there, if you take and keep repeating that same pattern, you're less likely to have success, and it's going to take you longer to build that up and to fix that. So what I do, and especially in a situation like that, again, I talk to people. I try to tell me about this process. What do you see that works? What do you see that doesn't work? Refine it down if you can. Make it something that's more manageable to where we can start QAing more in real time. And if you can do that, then you're less likely to run into a lot of the problems that you can have from like a development and associate development perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. How long did that take for you to kind of, from when you learned about the problem to where you felt like it had been resolved?
It was well, it took me about 30 days to really kind of delve
Okay.
in. And I like to look at everything. You do an interview with everybody. You start looking at the processes. You look at what is your QA process? What kind of documentation do you have?
Yeah.
You know, are there like SOPs or standard operating procedures that you have for here's how we do this activity?
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, is there refinement then that we could do here? Are there gaps here?
Yeah.
Is it a situation where there's a handoff issue? So let's say one person works on a task and then they have to pass this off to somebody else. Well, if they take, let's say that a task takes 2 weeks for them to complete. Well, let's say it's taking them 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here, you've got somebody that's now lost 7 days of that overall quality process. So now you're behind the 8 ball. It's still going to take them time to QA. Let's say it takes them 7 days. You're now a month out from when this started to where we're at today.
Right. And if that timeline needs to be shorter, there's got to be changes to the process. Interesting. So since you said that you were always wanting to be an entrepreneur from a young age, I think that is true. Like I felt the same way. I always just wanted to run or own my own company. And it's just something that is in your blood, right? But so maybe there's somebody out there that's watching today that is thinking about starting their own business. Do you have any advice for them?
I think to me the biggest thing is really, what are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What do you enjoy?
Yeah.
You know, you could start a business. You could start any business, anything you can dream of, you can start. But if you're not passionate about it, you're less likely to have success.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that you get really excited about and every morning you wake up and you're like, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to do this, that's the key.
Yeah, I agree. It's just something that you're going to have to want to keep showing back up even after the not so good days. So if you're really passionate about it, that's so much easier. So
yeah.
Well, that's great advice. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about specific services or anything about the business?
I think for me, really, you know, I love working with people and I love helping people. And that's the biggest thing. The one thing I would tell a lot of companies is if you feel that something is just amiss or we've got something that's not exactly working the way we want to see it work, or there's operational, there's something amiss, it's always best to ask for help before you get too far along in it. And because then you start to drown and you're in the weeds.
For sure.
And like that. So just having, I think, that confidence to be able to
raise
do
the
that.
flag and
ask for help.
You know, kidding. So that can be hard to do, but it's important.
Yep,
so
it is. Because I want to see all businesses succeed.
Yeah.
You know, small business is really the foundation of our country and the foundation of our economy. And if small businesses start struggling and they're hurting, and we're in tough economic times, that can be bad.
Right.
So the sooner that we can identify, hey, I need some help, time to get after it.
Call Matt.
That's right.
Well, I wanted to just quickly mention we're preparing for our ribbon cutting tomorrow. We've moved into our new offices at 7800 O Street. If you want to stop by, ribbon cutting's at 4 o'clock. Would love to see you all. And once again, thank you so much for coming in today, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it. And come out, nice new facility.
Yeah, awesome.
I like it a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks.